From the swamp to the stars, it is that time of the night again where we bring in little Timmy Senor, our resident Timbit, for the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Little Timmy Senor, it's always good to have you back, and it's nice to be with you once again, and I hope you didn't miss me too much while I was down in San Francisco.
Did you go somewhere?
Wow.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. You've been gone for a couple of days here. That's great. So, hey, why don't you catch me up? Can you give me any of the digs? What's the lowdown? What happened? Any secrets that you can reveal from the beautiful coast, San Francisco?
You know what? It was a great conference. A lot of experiencers there who were talking about their experiences for the first time or first time in a long time. And I always like that. The one thing I love about Lorian Fenton's conferences is she is always looking for fresh voices. Yes, she will have some of the regulars there. Stephen Bassett was there. Melinda Leslie was there, to speak. But hearing a lot of the speakers speak there, including John Ramirez, the former CIA agent, talk about his own experiences. One of the things that really caught me off guard with what he said was many of the members of the CIA are experiencers, and that's why they're hired.
Wow.
That one kind of tripped me out.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, let's never mind about what they were speaking about. Let's talk about behind the scenes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people congratulating you and me for our hard work in bringing to light the information about Enigma Labs and the secrecy behind this. And the fact that they are all kind of conforming into each other is scary for a lot of people in ufology. They don't think it's good. They don't think it's going to advance the field. In fact, they think it's going to close a lot of doors. And they were very, very polite towards us, congratulating us on the fact that we were leaders in that field of bringing that story to light, and that nobody else has really touched on it regarding putting everything together, from Arrow to NASA to the Galileo project by Harvard educator Avi Loeb, to UAPX, to MUFON, even dabbling in Washington, D.C. And one of the big questions was what we brought up, Tim, and that was, who's going to be the voice of the people? So I was glad to hear that was going around the conference. I really was. I wish somebody would have spoke on it. If Lorian had asked me, that's what I would have spoken on. Okay, but I wasn't asked to speak. I was MC this year. And we're just going to wait and see. But it is on people's minds, and people are paying attention.
Yeah, and we have to be able to ask those hard questions and get the straight answers. We need transparency. That is important. I mean, a lot of the information that MUFON was collecting was also given back. Historically, it's been a give and take. And so if an organization wants to come forward and accept people's information, there should be some give back and some follow-up, and perhaps somebody reach out to those individuals just the way MUFON does, and potentially even investigate. I've heard of nothing about Enigma enough to know whether they even do that sort of thing. And I think that's important if you want to consider the information that you're collecting to be even real. Shouldn't you investigate and make sure that you're collecting valid data?
Well, there was 2 points that were made regarding that. Number one, television star and former FBI agent Ben Hansen has agreed to allow Enigma Labs to use his investigations and his results. And apparently Ben has been taking a lot of heat from a lot of veteran people in this field for doing that, basically saying, come on, Ben, you know better. Now,
Yeah.
how he has reacted to that was basically, hey, I don't have time for all the cases I'm working on. I needed some help. That's where I turned, but there were a lot of people saying, geez, man, you got to deal with the devil. You got to deal with the devil here. Like, what are you doing? And the other thing that a lot of people were talking about was how governmental it's becoming. And I was also surprised how many people are also agreeing with us, Tim, that, and I had this conversation with Stephen Bassett about UAP versus UFO. How many people there are not using the word UAP because they are convinced, just like you and I have talked about, UAP is man-made.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also a great way to take the temperature of a room to kind of hear what the buzzword is. If people are using UAP in the room, it's probably science and tech guys. If they're using UFO, it's probably MUFON and witnesses and things like that. Just generally speaking. And that's not a bad thing. That's just my observation. And I think that it is kind of dividing the community. And I feel like that is absolutely on purpose. That was placed there on purpose. Now we can embrace it and use that as a tool, and we should. But at the same rate, it's a shame because it really has corrupted the UFO world, and so it's really hard to decipher what we're getting as far as real information on the topic of UFO and what is just swayed information that's polarized towards a dollar sign at the end of some road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you are bang on. People are catching on within the community. And that's due to hard work from you, me, and many others in this community who have invested our time, our money, our knowledge, our research, everything that we do to try and bring to light the subjects.
Yeah.
You know,
And
we talk a lot of woo on this show. We
yeah.
do talk a lot of woo. Okay. But there are times where we have to be serious and educate the public as to what's going on and then let them formulate their own responses. Look at what we did with, breaking the news out of Canada. Look what we did with a lot of the news that we've put together. So I think, I came out of there thinking what we're doing here with the UFO report is very strong for the community. We're providing strong knowledge.
That's a massive compliment and wind in our sails, and we'll definitely keep it up. But that also makes me think that it creates such a toxic platform in its own way, and the way it divided the community so easily, right? And we can kind of see where it started to guide it away from the real UFO topic early on. And successfully now we have Arrow and all of these organizations. Now, let's not forget this is not a new thing, right? We've had this historically over and over in the government trying to put this topic forward. And so now we're seeing it again. Is it going to get swept back under the rug again for another 40, 20, 30, 40 years before it becomes another topic that we have to deal with? And I find it incredibly frustrating at times trying to decipher the information because it gets pretty weedy, and somebody that you're getting good information from suddenly gives you something that you just cannot swallow. And you're like, I have to rethink everything that I got from this source now. It's troublesome.
Very true. Speaking of troublesome, the New York Times has always been very pro on the UFO story, where their counterpart, the New York Post, which also happens to have UFO big mouth Stephen Greenstreet, who's caused a lot of havoc on UFO Twitter, on their payroll, they have put out an article that really slams a lot of the big names over the last few years and absolutely destroys ufology, saying that it's garbage. It's a nothing burger. There's nothing there. Let's get to it.
Yeah, so the New York Post has a brand new story that headlines Crazy UFO Believing Pentagon Bosses Missed Spycraft for Years. And this article comes to us from Todd Farley and Stephen Greenstreet. And so the next line, we'll just dive right into it because your audience is going to absolutely love this, Dave. So the Post was right. The UFO story was fake news. After a gigantic Chinese spy balloon flew over America, the mainstream media and some congressional leaders are still looking for aliens. And it's now reported that the Pentagon missed several incursions of foreign spycraft for years because they were instead looking for UFOs. How did this happen? It seems a small group of UFO activists spent years misleading a credulous media and oblivious Congress. And so on December 16th of 2017, the New York Times released a bombshell story about Pentagon UFO program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP. And so the Times reported that Nevada Senator Harry Reid spearheaded the creation of ATIP, which was funded with $22 million to study strange, unidentified flying objects over the American skies. And so this story, unsurprisingly, went viral and UFOs became a red-hot topic overnight. 2 days after it was published, Lou Elizondo, the formal official from the Times, who claimed the director of ATIP, went on CNN to talk about the otherworldly UFOs that ATIP had allegedly studied. And so continuing on in this story, he says that he stated that anomalous crafts were defying the laws of aerodynamics and ended his interview by announcing, "We may not be alone." And so news headlines the following day repeated Elizondo's "maybe it's aliens" announcement and sent shockwaves all around the world. And so over the next 5 years, this now legendary story was repeated thousands of times in the media. Elizondo, who declined to comment for this story, would become a minor celebrity, appearing on primetime cable news, starring on History Channel series, and landing a book deal. And the UFO hysteria, which began with that one New York Times story, has now culminated with Congress taking official action to hunt UFOs. But most of that story was false. And exclusively reported by the Post, the Pentagon didn't actually have an official UFO program called ATIP, and Elizondo was not its director. In 2019, the Pentagon released a statement saying Elizondo had no responsibilities with the ATIP program, which they also said wasn't created to investigate UFOs. So this official statement contradicted the claims of the New York Times and Elizondo, but hardly outlets bothered to report on it. So in 2021, Elizondo filed a complaint with the DoD's Inspector General's office, claiming that the Pentagon denied his role with ATIP and was saying that it was a disinformation campaign to discredit him. So recent released documents from the DoD state that no evidence was found to support Elizondo's claims of any such campaign against him. Danny Sheehan, Elizondo's lawyer, confirmed with the Post that the DoD and OIG dismissed his complaint. So Elizondo did not return requests for comment. So this story starts in 2007 when a scientist at the Defense Intelligence Agency, James Lukatsky, says he read a book about Skinwalker Ranch and a supposed paranormal hotspot in Utah that some claim is home to UFOs, ghosts, werewolves, and all kinds of monsters. And so after reading the book, Lukatsky wrote to Robert Bigelow, the ranch owner, a real estate mogul and longtime believer in all things paranormal, and asked if he could visit. So within minutes of his arrival at the ranch on the sunny afternoon, Lukatsky claimed his self-published book and on a 2021 radio interview that he saw a small yellow apparition in mid-air inside a kitchen before disappearing in a few seconds later. And so according to his book, it was enough to convince him that something spooky was going on at that Skinwalker Ranch. And so we can get even deeper into this story here, and it's a really great story. But how could they convince Congress to spend taxpayer money on Pentagon program to study ghosts and goblins? Simple. They just wouldn't mention the ghosts and the goblins. So from 2009 to 2010, led by James Lukatsky at the DIA, the Bigelow OSAP contractors chased UFOs around the world and hunted monsters and skinwalkers at the ranch. But going a little bit deeper, we can see how this story publicly, the Pentagon stated that that publicly the Pentagon stated it had concerns and deemed the reports of limited value. But behind the scenes, there was shock and outrage. So you can see that there were some mixed intentions, perhaps some misinformation, but action still needed to take place because Reed's request not only was denied once or twice, but eventually was approved and the program went through. So, Dave, do you want to chime in at any point here before I go much deeper? Because I can get into the history, but you can see where this is going.
We got about 30 seconds left. And
please.
To me, there's not a lot of quotes going on. There's a lot of assumptions and piecing together. I think we also have to look at the fact that Stephen Greenstreet, who has been a naysayer of everything UFO regarding Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, and that entire group, this does, I don't want to say it seems like a hit piece against them, but it seems like a real hit piece against the subject that has really no information. And let's get into this when we get back. We got a lot to talk about. I think we're only going to get to one story tonight. Tim Senor, the UFO report. Are UFOs a bunch of bunk? According to the New York Times, they are. Pardon me, the New York Post. Times likes UFOs. Post, not so much. Spaced Out Radio continues after this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, buddy. Look at you all back from San Francisco. Is that some sun I see? Did you get some sun while you were out there?
No, there was no sun.
No sun. Bay Area gloom. Okay. It's one or the other. Well, you were in South San Francisco, right? And so that's typically gray over by the airport there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But cool. So that was UFO Con. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. You had amazing speakers there. I wish I could have been there.
It was fun, man. It was fun. You know what? The one issue that I would say, at least for this conference, there's not a lot of young people taking it in. In order to move the subject forward, you don't have to convince the older people. You have to bring that information to the young people. Otherwise, they get UFO Twittered.
Right. Do you think conventions are geared towards young people?
No, they're geared towards people with money.
Gotcha. You got to get the comic book convention crowd interested because they're definitely into this topic.
You do. Like, we went to, Lorian has this tradition where right across from the hotel, there's an IHOP. And no, I did not eat breakfast for dinner. Okay.
Attaboy.
But Robert Perala, who's been there forever, good guy. He is outside and this young guy walks up to him and sees Robert's name tag. He goes, UFO Con? Where's this at? And Robert was like, oh, man, we just wrapped it up here right across the street of the Doubletree. And this kid was like, damn, man, if I would have known, I'd have totally been there. I'm totally into UFOs. I got a UFO collection in my house.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, we have to try and get more young people listening in, not just to the television shows, podcasts, or UFO Twitter. Because the majority of them, they don't know what it's like to hear Stephen Bassett talk up front, or Melinda Leslie and her incredible research,
Yeah.
or people like Science Bob and the experiences of Camille James Harden or Dr. Arena Scott, or John Yost, who'll be a guest on this show soon.
Big fan of John's. Yeah.
Nice guy.
Great guy. Awesome filmmaker. Yeah.
He is so funny. He is so funny.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to be able to get to that younger crowd.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're in trouble. Because the older crowd is eventually going to die off.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, there's still an element of it that, even amongst young people believing in it and talking about it in a real way, it's probably hard to do amongst peers, I'm sure.
But, I mean, when we were at the MUFON conference, okay,
yeah,
you saw it. Out of the 450 people that were there, how many were under the age of 40?
Right. Yeah, no, I felt young.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
but seriously, how
Yeah.
many were under the age of 40? 10?
Yeah.
12 maybe?
Right.
That's not good. That's not good. Because the younger crowd is going more towards the scientific side, the social media side. Hi, Lee Lovelight. They're not. Hi, Susie B. How are you? They aren't taking in the knowledge that many of these veterans have or people have. That's dangerous.
Right.
Thanks, Steve Wolf, for that amazing super chat, along with BMR, Vaughn, Rex, Space Cow, and B. Brian Blair. Appreciate the love, guys. Really do. We're going to get going here in about 10 seconds. So let's just bring it on down here, little Timmy Senor. We'll continue with the New York Post. Rounded third, we're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. A very, very good night of radio for you tonight. If you missed it on our archives, you could find it at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We're going to continue on with Tim Senor's UFO report here, and we're talking about a New York Post article that basically is ripping everything about ufology apart. Everybody's a liar. Every story is fake. Tim, take us to it.
That's right. And so to continue with the New York Post story by Stephen Greenstreet, it appears that a small group of UFO believers distracted the media and Congress into looking for extraterrestrial UFOs, while in reality, terrestrial spycraft were blazingly flying over America with impunity. Okay, and so in a tweeted video, Marco Rubio states that, in a quote, "No one took it seriously because immediately it was about UFOs and flying saucers and aliens." And so, but rather than getting it fixed, the same mistakes are seemingly still being made. Some of the same UFO activists involved in the fake 2017 New York Times story lobbied congressional leaders like Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Marco Rubio to create a new UFO program called the All Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, or ARROW. And so ARROW is reportedly looking into an avocado-shaped UFO from 1945 and whether flying saucers turned off American nuclear weapons in 1967. Official government documents show the latter case as a hoax, but that isn't stopping the ARROW from asking for lots of taxpayer money for investigations. And so on March 4th and 5th, Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor appeared at the Alien Con, a popular annual convention for UFO fans in Pasadena, California, to talk about their experiences working for the Pentagon UFO Task Force. And so it's unknown if the two, now retired from the government, will be subpoenaed to do the same by a Congress and White House currently demanding answers about how and why we missed foreign spycraft over American skies for years. And so it's pretty obvious Stephen Greenstreet's position here, feeling that the UFO topic has been derailing the potential of true spycraft and UAP, I guess, in this situation, and that it's been going on for a long time, and it's potentially put our airspace in danger because we're calling things UFO and treating them like UFO, where we should be treating them like spycraft. That seems like his position. So how do you feel about that, Dave? What should we be looking at? What is our response to this?
I have a couple of things to say on this. Number one, I'm so sick and tired of the show me proof argument regarding the downplaying of this subject. It doesn't matter whether it's a New York Post or podcasts out there. What is proof? This topic, Tim, would have nothing to study if people didn't come out and talk about this subject of what they saw. It is the public and their anecdotal stories that have brought this to light over the last 70 plus years. Then we started filling in the blanks. I don't understand the ad hominem attacks on an entire community because you don't like Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon, which the job of a journalist, even for the weakest of the New York Post writers, is not to inflame an op-ed. It is to provide facts. That is journalism. Calling it fake news, fake stories, fake videos, fake people. There are over, what is it? What was the statistic? 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 Americans claim that they have seen a UFO. There's over 330 million Americans. So you're telling a good chunk of your population that you're full of it? That's your readers. Right?
Right.
I agree with where I do agree with the article, except they have no clue which direction they're going, is there is corruption within this community and the narrative that is being spun. We have said that since the TTSA days. That's why I tell everybody there's no such thing as disclosure. I had a conversation yesterday with Christopher Sharp of the Liberation Times. He called me up, and I said to him, he goes, Dave, what's going on? What do you think we need as journalists to improve on this subject? Tim, I said the same thing I say to you and our audience all the time. I said, number one, we have to remove UAP off of our record. Go back to UFO. And I explained why. That UAP is, I believe, man-made. UFO is not. And number two, I said, we have to get the word disclosure out of our mouths. We are in a confirmation move. And the moment we as journalists start realizing this, and we realize that we're not getting the information, we're not getting disclosure, the more we will have to report on, which is good for our stories.
Yeah.
And that was a point that he wanted to sit back and chew on for a while. But this ad hominem attack on the entire community by the New York Post. Who wrote that? I don't think Stephen Greenstreet wrote it.
Yeah, no, he did.
We did.
Yes. He wrote it with a partner. And I'll give you his partner's name here. It's at the top of this story. Todd Farley and Stephen
Okay.
Greenstreet.
So okay, looking at the two who wrote it, I would say this. It's a hit piece, op-ed piece. There's nothing journalism there. Nothing journalism. Show us the quotes. And I don't understand why they are attacking Elizondo or Mellon when that's not even the story right now.
Right. But they have a very loud voice, or he does, and he writes that way. And he questions people that way. If anyone is aware how he was at the con and asked Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp very confrontational questions, aggressively, I guess, potentially. Anyways, and even with the title of this article, Crazy UFO Believing Pentagon Bosses Missed Spycraft for Years. Now, I do agree to a point that the UFO topic definitely got involved in that situation. If Arrow was involved in it, or maybe not, who really knows? But my assumption is potentially. But ultimately, I think that when you see a strong position like this, it's simply because he's, angry about the situation. And I can understand why, because quite honestly, it does feel like the UFO topic, he may believe in UFO potentially, but according to this, UFO has been used to kind of dumb down our aerospace awareness, and we've let things go because we're considering it UAP and we need to study it, not so much bring it down like we did with so publicly with the Chinese balloon. But I would like to consider a brand new article coming from John Greenwald recently that's even stating that the US Air Force is now saying that all the photos and videos of that 2023 balloon shootdown is classified, and obviously all of the information linked to the
Of
other
course.
takedowns. And so that comes here in a recent FOIA request that was placed by the Black Vault and John Greenwald. So, getting a denial like this is obviously speaking very loudly on their position of how they feel about these things, that perhaps their awareness has gone up and they're taking it seriously. But it's unfortunate that Arrow's going to take the fall, and that the community that is trying to segregate out UFO from UAP is going to take the hit, according to this kind of look, that they're dumbing down on all of this. They're not going to talk about it. So, yeah, it's looking like we're not going to get anything else at this point. And I would be surprised if after this interagency ends, if there was a new agency that even looked, we may see this squashed, especially after what we're seeing with Avi Loeb and his new release. We're finding that Oumuamua is explainable now with some new information. And so we're starting to see some of our woo getting squashed by science and things like that. But,
Yeah. And we're going to see more of that.
And that is what you and I predicted, that they were doing these public things so that they could come out and say, hey, it's mundane, everyone, right? And they were going to squash it, call it UAP, and it's just mundane stuff. Meanwhile, UFOs are still in our airspace and they know nothing about it and they don't want to talk about it, in my opinion.
I agree. Dude, it is crazy out there right now.
Yeah,
And
doubling down.
And they are digging trenches
Yeah.
in the UFO war right now. They are digging in trenches to try and rip this subject apart.
Yeah.
And this is where I think, okay, if you look at it politically, Tim, the New York Times has really sided with Elizondo, Chris Mellon, and the politicians who are bringing this in. The New York Post has cited that with Susan Go, the Pentagon, the Air Force, that there's nothing going on. They bought the story verbatim, and that the military doesn't want anything to do with this subject. Those are not good options for people. They are not good options for this subject.
Right. Green Street actually went to go and expose documentary style excursion to Skinwalker Ranch to try and debunk. And, if you're willing to sit through those videos, you'll get his take on it. And anyone that goes to a hotspot with expectations, you're going to get nothing. And here's the thing, you're going to explain anything away that does happen. So, it's pretty much pointless for somebody that's already geared with, an opinion like that, to even go there. There's no point because you're not going to retrieve any data of value.
Very true. What's the other topic we have for tonight?
Let's take a quick look. So, I just tapped the wrong one. Let's see. So it looks like the Senate is planning to hold hearings in April. And I have an article from Politico.com that talks about that and what the Biden administration isn't telling Congress about spy balloons. And so obviously that is more along the same lines that we've been talking about. But the big important takeaway from this is that it's not clear whether the problem is simply about the limits of technology. Oh, I'm sorry, my tablet just blanked out on me. I apologize.
That's all right.
Completely. Okay, here we go. It's not clear whether the problem is simply about the limits of technology or also, I did it again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right in the middle of me reading. I apologize. Or also about how the Pentagon and other agencies have decided to prioritize and parse data. Gillibrand said that there is a push among some officials and lawmakers to have longer-term, more persistent awareness of the area above commercial airspace to better track drone and balloon technology. However, the administration has yet to decide how and whether to rejigger its approach to tracking and shooting down the objects, including whether it wants to set new thresholds in its systems that would allow for officials to more easily detect a larger number of UAPs at any given time. So those discussions have been viewed internally and as slowing down the analysis of historical UAP data. The official said that some progress is slowing. So lawmakers are actively pushing for more information from the administration. And so the Senate now plans to hold a public hearing on the topic in April. So again, a public hearing on the topic of UAP in April. And it's unclear how forthright the administration will be with its conversations with Congress about its investigative work. But National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told reporters on March 7th that there might be very little at all, and that the administration can reveal about the Chinese balloon debris collection efforts. And he says in a quote that I've set no expectation that there's going to be some big public rollout of what we've learned.
Of course. Of course. I mean, Tim, we've been calling that since the last one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, what is the point of these hearings and bragging about these hearings and ufology getting all horny about these hearings when it's all going to be covered up? Right?
Right.
And if it's true, pardon me, I apologize for cutting you off there.
No, please.
Okay. If it's true that they're going to be talking about the Chinese balloons and drones, that doesn't sound like UFOs, does it?
Right.
Now, are we talking aliens and UFOs, or are we talking UAP? And look, to our audience out there, we keep showing you these examples to show the cover-up that is going on regarding this subject in Washington, D.C. There are no such things as disclosure, and UAP are man-made. I don't know how much more right we could be, Tim.
Right. The very frustrating thing is that publicly you hear Avi Loeb and all of the other people that are speaking on this topic with their strong belief of alien life and the possibilities, and then they turn around and support the data that goes against UFO and never even talk about it. In fact, only support that everything is UAP and mundane. So it's very frustrating, and I include people all across the board here, because it's very frustrating to see them kind of including the UFO people and topic in this, and then turn around and just completely disregard that topic when they're talking on a serious level to the government and representing data. And so there's definitely like a massive gap there. And when you see organizations like Enigma or any of these organizations that are wanting to help with the public portion of it, you've got to wonder exactly how they're motivated. And that can be a little distressing, especially when they're calling for public hearings. Who's informing them? Who's writing those questions? I know that, well, I don't know, but I have been led to believe that MUFON took place in helping to construct some of the questions for the first public hearing. And so we know that that potentially was a little bit weak, and they weren't properly prepared with video. So maybe the second time around, they will have some help, be more prepared. And the questions that are asked should maybe come from a consensus from the community rather than just MUFON itself, perhaps just one person from MUFON for that reason even. It's tough to get represented.
It's going to be tough. I mean, look, there are people like Gary Nolan who are standing out. Okay, Nicole Sackage basically just put in our chat room, and thank you, Nicole, for that. Said on another podcast earlier, all of us know that the woo is just around the corner. I would agree with that statement, because you can't connect any of this without the woo and the experiences people are having. The question is there enough people within the community, from the alphabet agencies to the elected officials themselves, who will have the time to understand the importance of the experience when it comes down to it?
Right. And Nicole brings up a great point, but you have to also know your audience, right? And so when Gary Nolan is talking about the Cade Putnam and it's and the effect of UAP on it, general public is going to glaze over and just go, who is Gary Nolan again? How was he up for a Nobel Peace Prize or whatever? Like how? And it's just because they don't understand that it's a much deeper thing than just things in the sky. There's this consciousness connection. So that is a tricky part to get to. The woo, I would love to think it's just around the corner, but it's not provable. Consciousness itself is not provable. And I think that's some of the stuff that Gary's running into as a massive problem, right? And so it's going to be tough to sell that to the public, even if it is medically provable. I know John Burroughs now even has a situation that seems provable. It's not going to be enough. I would love to think that woo is going to get proven. I would love to think so. Gary's got his work cut out for him in a massive way, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you, man. And Tim, I want to say a big thank you for you coming on in Space Out Radio again tonight. It was good to have you back regarding the UFO report.
Thanks,
and
bud.
I'm looking forward to doing it in a couple nights' time again.
Right on. Welcome home, bud. We're also happy to have you back.
Absolutely. Now we just got to find out where Random Guy is. He's hiding out there somewhere. Just like Brother is watching.
Yeah.
We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
Make a mistake. We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.